Welcome back to Exceptional Talk with Dr. Clark. This is part two with Miss Mildred Gaines. She told you some great stuff in part one. She's about to tell you some more in part two. So you're not going to want to miss any of it. Okay. All right. So thank you for being here once again to do part two because part one was so good. I just know that they want to hear. So we mainly end up leaving our ending our last session talking about how you mentioned when I said being ordained. A lot of times people feel like this is in the realm of ministers, pastors, bishops, but we all have a calling.
We do. We really do. And sometimes our calling comes in for me, it came through trauma, through me experiencing what I did not want to experience, which was grief.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in that darkness, I had to really, really believe there was light somewhere, and that light was in my calling.
Wow.
And I said, I can either let this grief take over me or I can use it. I can use it to love others through their grief.
And in the midst of that is healing you even more.
Right.
Slowly being healed.
Right. Slowly being healed. And that's also what started my healing journey. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And this is why sometimes I say to people, darkness can be your light. How was light discovered? It had to be dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, or we would not need light.
Right. Yeah.
So, when we're in the womb, it's dark in there.
Yeah.
And then when we're born, we see light.
Yeah.
But we had to start out in the darkness, right?
There you go. There you go. And even in Genesis, in the word, in the Bible, it said, God says, let there be light.
Right.
So you know that there had to have been darkness for him to say that. So we all have the ability to carry a light. I can remember when I was a little girl, and my dad, I went to my dad. My dad was a minister.
Okay.
That's all I knew. I was born in the word. So I would say to Daddy, I said, why all these little kids always come to me around me asking me stuff? I don't know. Dad said, because you carry a light. And at that time, I didn't understand what he was talking about. Like, light, what is Daddy talking about? A light.
Right.
But now I understand exactly what he meant. But I also understand that there are people that can come around us that don't want to let our light shine.
Oh, absolutely.
They want to dim your light.
Absolutely.
Or put your light out. So it goes back to that song where it says, let your light shine.
That's right.
That's
right.
It's just, people just have to believe. But I do want you to talk about that because during our break, you mentioned, you asked the question, did I say too much about God? Was I being too religious? I do need us to talk about this on camera because I said to you, we can never ever talk about God too much because somebody needs to hear what it is that you have to say. Because whether they consider it God or a higher being or whatever, there is something greater than us.
Absolutely. There is something greater than us. And I found out while trying to take my life. God said, you're trying to take the life that I gave you. Prior to that, I was living life on my terms. My parents were well, so I thought I was hanging out all the time, working in media, living in the Bronx, going to Manhattan whenever I wanted to, taking the subway, living my
Living
life.
your life, yes.
And I said, "Oh yeah, I grew up in the church, whatever, but I'm in my 20s. I'm going to live my life. God will always be there." Okay.
Mm-hmm.
God said, "You want to do that? All right."
Mm-hmm.
Um Slowly I saw my parents getting sick. Um, Slowly my friends, so I thought they were, started drifting away
Yeah.
because my light was getting dimmer and dimmer as I got more and more aware of what was going on in my life.
Absolutely, yeah.
Um, and slowly my spirit started to crumble. And when my life took a turn for the worse and I woke up with a empty bottle of pills in my hand, I saw that light that God was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that light is actually what took me to my car
Mm-hmm.
and to the emergency room
You follow
and
their light.
brought me that therapist
Yeah.
that was able to help me live in spite of. And that quote, "live in spite of," actually came from my father because, as I mentioned to you earlier in the biography, my father was a functioning alcoholic and drug abuser. But he would always be around, even in the midst of his alcoholism. He would be drunk, but be like, "I love you, and you
Mm-hmm.
got to live in spite of." And I'm like, "Dad, I didn't know what drunk meant. I just knew how it looked." And he
Right.
always looked
Yeah.
giddy. He would call himself a happy addict. "I'm addicted to drugs and alcohol, but I love you." I'm like, "What?" I was a kid. I didn't know what he was talking about. But he would always say, "Millie, I love you. You're my daughter. I'm sick. I'm not well. I don't do what I do, but I'm going to encourage you right now as I read Little Red Riding Hood to you that I'm living in spite of as your father." And I said, "What?" And so I never got it. But when he passed away, that was one of the last things he said to me. He said, "I want you to continue living in spite of." And that's why I decided to call my group Living in Spite of, because me taking myself to the hospital was, at the time, trying to live in spite of darkness.
Absolutely.
And the light was the result of what the hospital did for me through ordaining those nurses,
Mm-hmm.
those social workers, and
Mm-hmm.
those therapists
Yes.
to help his child.
Yes.
So everything started aligning for me. I said, "Okay, what was I supposed to go through that traumatic experience to get to the light?" And so this is why when people are like, "Why me?" I say, "Why not you?"
Right. There you
I,
go.
you
Because
know what I mean?
your test
Right.
is not going to be the same as somebody else's test.
Exactly.
But what it did for you, it
Mhm.
built your character.
Right.
And I don't mean just how you act, your personality. I mean, it built your character in how you're going to now look at life.
Yeah.
Your character has changed from the Millie that had not taken those pills before.
Right. Right.
If you
And
understand what I'm saying to you?
I
The
do.
Millie before
Absolutely.
the attempt is not
Right.
the Millie that you are now.
Right. Right.
Because you
I
had
do
to go
believe
through,
that's what he
yeah, you
said.
had to go through the storm.
Yeah.
And we all have our own personal, and I must say that because your storm is not going to look like my storm. My storm is not going to look like anybody else's storm. We're
Right.
all going to have our own storm.
Right.
Some of us have storms because of the decisions that we make. And
Mhm.
some storms we have that are out of our control. That's
Absolutely.
why the
Abs-
serenity prayer is so important,
mhm.
that you want God to even be there when there are things that are out of your control. He's there.
Absolutely. And that's what lifing is. Things that are out of your control. But what you can control, you look to God to be in the midst of.
That's it. Yeah.
What you can't control, you still look for God, because he is going to help you. He's going to be that control for what you can't control.
There you go. There you go.
You know.
Yes. That goes back to footprint, girl. You know,
Uh-huh.
that was when he was carrying you.
Right. Right.
Before you could see all the footsteps that you made, because those were your steps. You were making those steps, but when you could not make any more, then that's when God carried you.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. And I didn't even realize I was being carried, because I was going through a transition at that time. I didn't realize I was transitioning. And until I woke up on that floor with that bottle in my hand, I said, I got to get to the hospital, because
but the magic word you said, and I hate to cut you off, and then I'm gonna let you finish. I just got to get this in, because the magic word you said, you woke up.
Right. Right. I woke up, and I said, that was not a humane experience. That was a God experience. That was a spiritual experience.
Yes.
We're spiritual
awakening. A spiritual awakening.
That was a spiritual awakening.
Yes.
That was not the flesh at all. The flesh is what took me to the bottle, but the spirit took me away from it.
There you go.
Understand?
There you go. Yes.
So I will always have God in my spirit because of that story. And it's interesting, because you know, we're educators. And the population we work with, we do also deal with mental health.
Oh, yes. Yes. Absolutely.
And the students have also been lights in my life. And there's ways they don't even realize that they are helping me heal. One student said to me, and I won't say any names, but he started crying, and I said, you know, it's okay, you can stop crying. And he said, no, I want to cry. He said, I need to cry, because I know it's going to be all right, but I got to get it out now.
He wanted to release.
He said, I know it's going to be all right. But he said, and I know I'm a boy, but we also need to cry. And I mean, I know I'm taking a turn right here. And he also said to me, he mentioned God. That's why I'm saying this. He said, and I said, this is, God knew I had to be here for some time. He put me in this position, because I didn't know what I was supposed to do in Georgia. I had no idea.
We never know what we're supposed to do. We all have our own idea. We all have our own plans, because there were plans that I had that I'm not doing what I planned. So you are in your destiny. That's why you love what you're doing, and that's why I tell people there's no greater feeling than to know that you're helping someone.
Oh, absolutely.
Because now you have taken yourself out of the equation.
Absolutely. Because that's what God does for us.
He takes
he takes himself out of the equation. And when you know do that for someone else, when you know how it makes you feel, you're like, oh my gosh, I feel, you want someone else you love to have that feeling. So it's that story is very humbling to me and grounding to me, and it's what takes me back to the love of God. Everyone has a story, I believe, that takes them back to the love of God. What they have that story, and that's mine.
Even if they don't want to own it.
Right.
Even an atheist got a story, but they may not want to own it.
They may not. And I kept that story to myself for 8 years.
Wow.
8 years, and people would share their stories about suicide, and I was quiet as a mouse because I was embarrassed, but I said, why am I embarrassed of a testimony that
It
helped me
wasn't
be
time. It was supposed to share it on
right?
Exceptional Talk with Dr. Clark.
Right. Absolutely.
That's exactly where it's supposed to go because this is what God has called me to do.
Right.
And I
Amen.
truly believe that because I did not want to do it. And when I tell
Amen.
people that, they think I'm crazy. They think I just want to be this social media icon. You know, when I
Right.
tell you this is not how this started at all.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. And it's interesting because I really I wanted to do Live in Spite of, but it's a lot of work as well, putting into a group. But I said, God, I'm
Everything,
tired. I need you to do
everything
this.
that is worth
Right.
having and doing is
Mm-hmm.
work.
Absolutely.
Even loving and believing in God is
Is
work
work.
because it is so easy for you to sit there and not care about anything. It is so easy for you to just shut down and say, you
Mhm.
know what? But that is not of God.
Right. Right.
You have to
Ab-
consistently have faith. That's work. You
oh,
got to
absolutely.
consistently believe. That's work. You got
Absolutely.
to consistently try to live right. That's work.
Right. To
Because
live. Ooh,
the first thing people gonna say to you, well, who can tell me what's living right? Living right is treating people like you want to be treated. That's living
right.
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 Love one another. That's
That's
living right.
true. That is the truth.
I'm
Absolutely.
not talking about you got,
Absolutely.
stop going to your nightclub. In time, you're going to learn that it's nothing there. All the other things that you're doing,
Mhm.
is you going to have an epiphany to say, this is not what I'm supposed to do.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And I've had quite a few of those during in my healing journey, because when you're on a journey, you start realizing more of what you should not be doing. And it's harder because you know it now.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know it now. You're like, oh my goodness, I'm not supposed to be dismissive to those that need help. I'm not supposed to be as this shady person. It's like better because you're on a journey now. And when I first started my healing journey, I was hurting a lot more, and I wanted hurt people.
oh, of course.
Whenever you start a journey, it's always going to be difficult in the beginning, and
But it goes to what they say: misery loves company.
oh, absolutely.
So that's why hurt
I've
people
been,
hurt others because I want you to feel like I feel.
and I've been there, right? And I've been the one that wanted the company. I'm miserable. I'm going through this. I'm going through that with my parents. My relationship didn't work out. I don't, and it was a point actually in my life where I said, this is a heavy energy. It gets so heavy after a while that you just got to let it go. And there was a point in my life where I couldn't even be around. And this is where grief also took me, grief causing depression,
Mhm.
causing misery. And if you don't have God in your life, or therapy is something to help you get through that, it can take over your life and you will be unrecognizable to yourself.
Mhm.
There was a point in my life where I couldn't even be around women who had children because I had no children, and I was hurt by that.
Mhm.
But I said to myself, you know how many people that feeling is going to keep you from?
Mhm.
I had to let that go. I had to let that misery, that depression, that anxiety slowly go. And I believe your strength has different levels, like we mentioned before.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I had to build it over
Yeah.
the years.
Mhm.
I had to build my strength.
Mhm.
And once I'm still building it. I'm
Mhm.
still building it, but it's at a different level than it was
Well,
before.
you're not building it.
Well,
The life experiences,
yes,
that's what builds our strength. You
right.
if we could do it, we would never feel anything. But when you experience those obstacles and those storms, that's what
Mm-hmm.
builds your strength, that makes
Yeah,
you stand, even when the storm and the winds and everything is blowing. But girl, you are grounded and you
that's
are
it.
standing and you are not moving
I'm telling you,
until
absolutely.
it's time. Then
You
when
stand
you move
on
through
your
that storm,
raincoat. What was
when
that?
you get through that test, that's a new Millie, because now she's at another level.
I love that. And I love the storm analogy because I'm thinking, for some people, the first storm comes and you have your little rain boots. The
Mm-hmm.
second storm comes, you have your raincoat, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
third storm comes, you have your umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
Fourth storm comes, you got your whole house built, ready for that
Yes,
storm.
yes, and
You
it's
hiding
blown
in the
away.
basement.
Mhm.
You ready. You like, oh, listen, I'm fully equipped now, but you have to go through a few storms to build to that level
Yes,
of being able to get through the storm.
yes, girl. That's it. You know,
Yeah,
that is what builds our character.
right.
That is what brings you close to God. Because if you did not experience anything like those storms, then
Hmm.
you wouldn't even need God. You wouldn't need anybody because you wouldn't have to worry about any pain. You wouldn't have to worry about any hurt. You wouldn't have to worry about any of that.
Right,
But to
right.
know that the person that has created you, because man could not do that.
Oh,
They can
absolutely.
say whatever they want to say.
Mm-mm.
They can clone, they can do all that, but they have not
Right.
mastered that.
A man couldn't wake me up with that bottle in my hand,
Thank
okay?
you.
That
Absolutely not.
was purely the most high. That was purely God above.
Thank you. Thank you. And until people understand that regardless to what you want to believe,
Hmm.
and everybody have their own right, and I don't want to take that from anybody because they have their own right, but we all have our own God,
Oh, absolutely.
and
We
only you can know what your God. And when I say that, it's because everybody belief is different. You got your
oh
Christians, you got your Episcopalians, you got your Methodists, you got all these people.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Absolutely.
you go to another country, you got your Buddhists, you got your all this.
Right,
So
right,
whatever God, if whatever
right,
your God is,
right,
if He is bringing you peace and love and
right,
harmony,
right.
then
Absolutely.
that's what you want. Wouldn't you want that though?
Oh yeah, and if you think about it, all of those religions, every specific person in those religions experiences hurt. They
Yeah,
experience pain. So it doesn't discriminate from a Buddhist to a Christian.
it's not at all.
You're gonna grieve
Gonna agree.
some way or another.
You're
And
gonna experience loss.
right. So this is why God doesn't discriminate. You're like you said, your God.
Yeah,
You're gonna pray to that Buddhist is gonna pray to their God. That Muslim is gonna pray to their God. That
yeah,
Christian is gonna pray,
yeah.
but we're all praying for the same thing.
We all praying for the same.
Healing.
Yes, that's it.
Right. That's
We all want peace
right.
and harmony, good health, sound mind. We all
Oh,
want that.
absolutely that mind.
You know,
Absolutely. And I
I
always
all
say,
want that. You know,
always
but
say
I know
that.
we done got away from we preaching now, y'all. But but I
That's all
do
right.
want you all to really, really uh actually I want you to tell them how that those that are suffering out there in silence, those that need your help, to
Hmm.
know how to reach you, how to join Live in Spite of. We were supposed to have done it in part one, but
That's
the
fine.
conversation got so good till we just neglected that. But I am not going to go any further without you letting them know how they can get help.
Absolutely. So you can definitely find me on Facebook. My group is called Live in Spite of. It's hashtag Live in Spite of. You can also find me on Instagram. Is underscore at Live in Spite of underscore. I'm also on TikTok. And I am as Live in Spite of, and I am also on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel called Live in Spite of. So it's Live in Spite of across all four borders, social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
All right, guys, y'all heard it right here. You cannot miss it. So if you don't go on Facebook, make sure you go on Instagram. If you're not an Instagrammer, make sure you go on YouTube. You're not a YouTuber. You better try to go to what's the other one? I missed one.
TikTok.
TikTok. So, honey, better go on TikTok. So please get help. If you are hurting, if you have experienced loss, regardless to what it is, death, divorce, whatever, friend just walked out, whatever the situation is, anytime you have experienced loss, it hurts. And it's always important to be around people that knows, if you haven't gone to the mountaintop, how can you tell me how to get there? But if
Oh,
you've
absolutely.
already been there and you know how to get there, it's always good to know that there is somebody that can help you as well as help you get over what it is that you are experiencing. So you heard it right here with Miss Mildred Gaines, Live in Spite of, on Exceptional Talk with Dr. Clark. You're definitely going to have some more of her. Until the next time, bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. I love it. I love it. All
I
right,
love
guys, y'all want to hear this.